Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Angelique and I did something crazy. What did I do that was so crazy, you may ask? I have answers for you. Guys, I wrote a book. It's so crazy saying that, but I wrote a book with zero experience, and I'm gonna break down an overview of how I found the balls to do that. So we're just gonna jump right into it. It did take me a year. It took me a complete 365 days to write one draft of a book. But like I said, I was going into it with absolutely no experience, and I definitely learned along the way very slowly and taught myself. So I'll kind of walk you through the progression of that. So it all started in 2024, November. I was just being the reader that I am and really getting more into fiction again. Growing up, I did read some fiction. I feel slightly like an imposter because I feel like so many people were such die-hard readers growing up, and I was kind of like in and out of it for sure. Some fiction, I grew up loving nonfiction. I loved self-help books and all that. But in 2024, I got way more into fiction, and I was reading Babel by R.F. Kuang. Guys, and I can't even describe, I think if you've ever felt inspired, you'll understand the feeling that I'm talking about. When I was reading Babel, I felt like a weight, like a really heavy, burdensome weight come over my body, where I was just like, ugh, oh no, I have to write a book. It was so burdensome. It wasn't at first actually very fun when I came up with the idea. It felt like, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna have time to do this? But it felt so intense of a calling that I had to just sort of give over to it and be like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. So I wouldn't really even say Babel is like a comp title for the book that I'm writing. It just sparked a question in my mind that set me in this direction. So my book is a fantasy. It's definitely a series. And as a debut writer, that's scary, especially who wants to traditionally publish. And especially as a writer who's just never written anything before. Like, why on earth did I jump to a fantasy series dual point of view book? I feel like I just made it as hard for myself as I could. But anyway, here we are. I did it. So yes, like I mentioned, it's a new adult fantasy. It has a lot of really heavy themes revolving feminism that are very important to me. Knowledge is power. There's, throughout the series, an enemies to lovers. There's a friends to lovers. And there's a lot of cool elemental magic, and I'm not even going to sit here and tell you that that is the synopsis for my book, because I already know. You can go on my TikTok. I tried to describe my book and my brain glitched. It's so much information in my head right now. I feel like writing a book and writing your synopsis, two entirely different skills. But it's centered around two girls who, it's a dual point of view, who are set in this really, really dark, dystopian, sexist, patriarchal world, and they are uncovering the truth about themselves, their history, their past, and the past of the province that they live in. And they're very different, but they're best friends, and ultimately they have to find a way to work together to find out the truth. And what ended up happening in the book is definitely different than the initial question that sparked the idea for this book, because outlining only ever does so much, I've come to learn. It started off with a lot of brainstorming. My husband went on a lot of long walks with me where I was kind of just thinking out loud with him and bouncing off of him to world build and to create some sort of a backstory. But it started super awkward. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I had to do it. I had too many notebooks full of too many notes, and my notes on my phone app and my Google Docs, and I started writing, but I got to the point where I realized structure needed to come first. I needed to not just be driven by the inspiration of this plot, but also the craft of writing a book. So that's when my mind started to really look for guidance, and I found a lot of amazing resources that, of course, I will share with you. So here are some of the resources that I found, starting off with Save the Cat Writes a Novel. This is by Jessica Brody, and You've heard of this book. It essentially breaks down story structure in beats, and it explains to you the purpose of each beat. And you really start to watch TV differently when you learn about the beats in this book. You read books differently. There really is, for the most part, a structure to storytelling that does not mean your book is going to be predictable. It just means you understand the psychology of grabbing a reader and keeping a reader. This was immensely helpful because I sort of felt like I was losing my way when I started telling the story and wanting to understand how to effectively convey the story I was trying to tell. So I highly recommend this book. I have made a lot of notes in that book. The second book that I ended up purchasing was Story Genius by Lisa Crone. I'm about only halfway through this one. I liked one part of this book a lot that said that studies show people do not read stories like they're reading a story. People read stories like they are in the story, and it's why horror movies are so effective. And it's why you'll find people having visceral reactions or jump scares or feeling the need to yell at the screen, no, don't go there, don't do that, because our brains are so wired for storytelling since the beginning of human communication. When it's done well, we're really put in the scenario, and I just was really fascinated by that. The last book that I found that I haven't started reading yet is called The Happy Writer by Marissa Meyer. And the thing about this is it's a little bit less, from what I gather, about story structure and more about your career as an author and keeping your mental health and your inspiration a priority throughout the ups and downs of the tumultuous publishing world. So those are just a few resources I wanted to share. Of course, I also love Brandon Sanderson's lecture videos on YouTube. I ate those up when I found those. I ate those up. I love the promise and payoff and just everything that he has to say. I will link below his channel if you want to check it out. Alexa Donne is also a really good resource. And I also really enjoy another author tuber. Her name is Brielle Writes. I will link her channel down below too. Which I just love that there's this little amazing community of people on the internet who are enamored by the craft of writing and sharing their journey and their progress, and that's essentially like what I want to do here on this channel too. One more resource that is actually it's kind of my guilty pleasure, so I'm slightly embarrassed to say it, but I love on Disney Plus. There's a documentary on the making of Frozen 2. I believe it's called Into the Unknown. I have probably watched that, I don't even know how many times. I've adored that documentary for so long, well before I thought that I would write a book, because I realized very long ago I am obsessed with the craft of storytelling, and that's why I've been involved in music and songwriting, and that's why I've been involved in acting. It really all boils down to storytelling. So if you watch that documentary, it is one of the best examples of people who are incredibly successful in telling stories, going through the ups and downs and the puzzle that is putting a story together, so that you just never feel alone. Professionals feel it all the time as well. And the outcome of their storytelling was just so incredible. I do actually love Frozen 2. I do actually. I am a Disney Classics person. I'm a Renaissance girly. Anyway, so those are just some of the resources that I ended up turning to so that I felt like I had something tangible to go by when creating my story. So then I started outlining. I obviously went off of the Save the Cat method, and I realized how important it was as well to have done this research early on, because especially if you're interested in traditionally publishing, there are guidelines, there are standards, especially as a new writer, of word count that you want to make sure you're sticking to, because you can immediately rule yourself out from any agent's interest if you aren't aware of the standard word counts within the market or the genre that you're writing in. So I got more educated on what I should be aiming for in terms of the length of this story and how I should be meeting those marks in terms of my beats, which really helped me outline. I thought for sure that I was going to be a hardcore outliner. I need structure. I feel very lost without structure. So I went in on my outline, and then I started writing based off of that. And I just realized there is only so much an outline can do, because when you're writing, I think, at least for me, there is an inevitable amount of pantsing, writing by the seat of your pants. That is just gonna happen. Your story is gonna veer. Characters are gonna start to make their own decisions and tell you who they are, apparently. They tell you what they're gonna do, and I'm just like, oh, this is where we're going, okay. I had to take my outline with a grain of salt, and essentially for my second draft, I'm gonna have to recreate the outline entirely because this book ended up writing itself. And also when I outlined, I realized I was hit with a very hard truth. I thought that I was writing a standalone initially. I thought that I was writing a single point of view initially. I started to look at my story and I realized, oh my gosh, you are rushing the hell out of this story if you try to tell it in one book. This is not one book. And at first that really hit me hard because it just was overwhelming. But then I felt kind of liberated by that as well because I realized, okay, I really have an opportunity to like take a magnifying glass to this story. What was gonna be act 1, literally, what was gonna be act 1 has now become an entire book. What I thought was my catalyst was my finale. So I took a serious big magnifying glass. I zoomed the hell in on this story, on these characters, on their daily lives, and I started to get into the nitty-gritty of their minds and really started to have fun with that. But if I hadn't done more research early on, I would have had a really rushed, weirdly paced book on my hands. Now, this is the first book. I also have an idea for a tandem read for this first book, which would be more of a novella. I have an idea for the next book in this series, and then I have an idea for a prequel now. Lord knows if any of this will happen. Lord knows if this book will get me an agent. Lord knows if this book is gonna get me a publishing deal. But these are like the way my mind starts going when I started writing. So really the world started unfolding and my hopeful career as an author one day started really unfolding in my mind. And then I started to get inspired with completely other ideas for other projects as well. And it became super important for me to not act off of that excitement and that instinct and completely abandon the story I was working on, because there's always new and shiny and fun ideas that you want to act on the second they come up in your spirit. But I've had to really put my head down and just do this one thing for an entire year and stick with it and get it done, like not just be bouncing around from project to project. So I feel like writing a book is a serious act of discipline. Serious act of discipline. I had to also learn a lot about not editing along the way, because I wouldn't say I'm a fast writer. I'm not a fast reader. I process very slowly. So when I started going back on my work and trying to edit it as I went, when I realized something wasn't making sense anymore based off of where the story took me, I started to see way less and less progress. So that became huge for me, to abandon edits while writing and just create another document where I could go to the side, make a note of the edit for the future, and then go back to writing and moving the story forward. This is when I wanted a better writing software and a better organization for this project. So I initially was writing on Google Docs, and then I decided to check out Scrivener, which is literally a software for writing and storytelling and story structure. I got Scrivener. I got Scrivener and I dove in with all of the little tabs that I could use. I have Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Within Act 1, I have the chapters. Within those chapters, I have the scenes. It's very nice for my mind, and then you can write notes on the side of each chapter or scene. You can zoom out and look at the outline of your story on there. I highly recommend looking into Scrivener if your brain works a little bit better and needs more structure. It's been really useful for me, and I just use Google Docs now for my like extensive notes that I have while I'm writing of edits that I need to make. But around this time of getting more and more into the writing, I was still living in Miami at the time. I've since moved to North Carolina, and I was working full-time as well. I'm an echocardiographer, and I was getting so unhappy with how much time I did not have to put toward this story. It was really a big wake-up call for me, because I'm big on stability in life and making sure like there's a roof over my head, there's food in the fridge, there's like, you know, savings in the bank. Like that's big for me. But then I started to realize I was prioritizing stability too much, to the point where I was neglecting that creative side of myself, and I started to feel extremely burnt out because I did not have any remaining energy left at the end of the day. I didn't have any time left as far as I was concerned. I would go to work early, try to write before my shift, come home, try to write before sleep, and it just felt like I was blinking and I was back at work. The weekend was just enough time for chores and errands. Somehow I had to squeeze more writing and planning in. It was not happy for me. I wasn't able to get the progress I wanted to get in. So I still pushed through and I still saw progress, but it wasn't until we decided to move to North Carolina, and my husband and I had a serious conversation and decided that I would take less hours so that I could put more into this book, which is a huge blessing. I'm just eternally grateful to my husband, my best friend. I love him so much. Like, he is the best partner in the world for me. I couldn't have done it in this time frame without his support. And I think that's also a big thing to know of people who are pursuing writing. Oftentimes they have jobs. Writing doesn't make you a whole lot of money unless you're, you know, winning the lottery as a writer. And a lot of times there's partners at home that are also supporting that creative side of someone who gets to take a lot of time to write. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it's not really, for me, realistic without that. So it's worth the mention. But now I work less hours. I have a lot more time to devote to my writing, and I started like a writing word count system that really propelled my progress. So I got a little board. Let me go grab it. Here's my cute board. This thing really did it for me. Like, I felt like I was just flying when I got this thing, okay? Like I said, I'm big on structure, and this provided that structure for me. I was able to track my weekly progress, my weekly goals, how much I hit each week of the month, what my goals were for the next month, and where I was in my word count overall in the story. And when I started doing this every single week, I had made more progress, I want to say, in like 3 or 4 months than I made the entire earlier part of the year. For me, I still see people that write way more than I wrote when I felt like I was going fast, but for me, I started to really get in the flow of things and hold myself accountable. So I started to use that board, and I would post my progress on my TikTok a lot. Within 3 or 4 months of starting that, my first draft was complete. So that brings us to where I'm at right now, which is I had a goal of 90,000 words for my fantasy novel, and I landed at 93,000 words for the first draft. So right now I have 3 alpha readers, my mom, my husband, and then a friend that I met on TikTok, Macy. She's also an author, and we have been talking like, I love that girl. We've been talking every day, whether it's about books or not, helping each other with ideas or feeling stuck in our projects. Just like, it's just nice to have someone who's on the same journey as you. And so we're each other's alpha readers right now. So she's reading my book and I'm reading her book, and I'm just really excited for the both of us. So that's a shout out to Macy. Hey girl. But now that I have alpha readers reading my first draft, I'm taking a month off, and I told myself I wasn't going to work on this project during this month. That's the point, is to get out of the forest, to be able to get out of the weeds, to be able to see more clearly when you step back into edits and read it from as close to a outsider reader's perspective as you can, because sometimes you just get so deep in it you can't tell what's good, what's working, what's not anymore. My plan was to completely start outlining a totally separate project that I had in my mind, which is more of like a literary fiction with magical realism elements to it. But it's so hard, y'all. I really want to work on the outline for the second book because I feel like it's the perfect time. I have a break. I'm not going to completely leave this world. And I feel like if I come up with really cool ideas for the second book, I'm still editing the first one. So it would be the perfect time to set up those ideas or massage plot holes or change things that would make those new ideas impossible so that it's more cohesive when I start writing the second book. But then there's people who say, y'all people who be querying art scare me. You guys' querying videos scare the shit out of me. Because why is it so hard? I know that it's never completely ruled out that your book could die in the query trenches. And so in that case, you always want to have something else that you can work on or that's already sort of started so that you have something to pivot to. Or if an agent likes your writing but doesn't like that particular book and they ask, do you have anything else you're working on? You actually have an answer for that. That's kind of like plan B thinking, realism thinking. Whereas I really feel like, what's the point of writing a book if you don't wholeheartedly believe in it? And so I want to go into querying believing someone is going to be interested and that it will help me to write this first and second book as best I can if I start outlining it now. So I'm kind of torn between that. I kind of don't know what the best thing to start working on is in this time. But other than writing, I'm going to try to do and enjoy more hobbies. I want to learn how to crochet. I recently got a Switch, so if you have any cozy game recs, please leave them below. And of course, I'm just going to continue to read. In the new year, I will go over my alpha readers notes and start working on draft 2. Sorry if you guys notice a shift. I just had to wait like 20 minutes for them to stop leaf blowing outside my window, but we're back and we're better. So the last thing I want to talk about is what I'm excited about for the future for 2026. So you've got to be kidding. So I definitely am really excited to get my alpha reader notes back and to start on draft 2. And then I'm going to send around to beta readers. And then I'm going to do a draft 3. Then hopefully the manuscript will be query ready. I don't know if this is going to happen in time in 2026 for me to start, because I assume I'm going to be finished around the holidays, which is the worst time to try to query. Even summer isn't that great. So I don't know if 2026 will be a querying year or not. We'll see how fast I go, because like I said, it took me a year to do this first draft. Granted, I was learning how to write a book and I was coming up with the plot for the first time. So I don't know what to expect in terms of like my speed for writing the second and third drafts. So I'm just gonna go into it with an open mind, and no matter what, I'm gonna put the quality of the story first. It's so hard to not rush. But everything in publishing is slow. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's sort of the very broad overview of how I ended up writing a book in a year with no experience and where I hope to take it. Please consider subscribing if you're interested in seeing this journey. I'm really excited to share it with you, and I'm excited to learn along the way too. And then of course, I'm excited to read more with you and share books that I absolutely love. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I will see you in the next one.